Call to order of a work session of the Goodyear City Council, 6 November 2006. All council members are in attendance, and all items are for discussion only. No action can or will be taken. We have 5 items on our agenda. We'll start with Dave. Dave, on consent decree between EPA and Crane.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight we will be making our presentation outlining the implementation of the activities from the consent decree. The presentation will include a summary of activities for Superfund PGA North only, the site locations, groundwater conditions and contamination migration, and then listing of potential additional risk concerns that the city is engaged with. The first year, Crane Company is scheduled under their consent decree and work plan to drill 14 extraction, monitoring, or re-injection wells. That obviously is going to cause disruption to our citizens and to our service area, and management wanted to make sure that you were fully briefed in terms of what to expect over the next 12 months. I am now going to turn this over to, for the technical presentation, to Mr. Dino Goetzies. He is our incredibly competent technical consultant with Burgess & Neiple and the primary author of the presentation this evening. Mr. Goetzies.
Thank you, David. Mayor and Council, how are you? Thank you very much. I'm Dino Goetzies, and I work with Burgess & Neiple, and I'm here to present an update on the North PGA Superfund activities. Provide you with the presentation outline will consist of activities at the Superfund site, provide you a site location, groundwater conditions and contaminant migration conditions at the site, and potential risks to the city of Goodyear, and that's extremely important to you. The site is located at the southwest corner of the intersection of Litchfield Road and Van Buren, which would be kind of south of the City Hall and west of City Hall. The responsible party at this particular site is Crane Company. The impact of most media is both soil and groundwater, being that there are contaminants in both the soil and groundwater. The chemicals of concern at the site consist of solvents, which would be trichloroethylene, methylethyl ketone, potentially some heavy metals, and some explosives. And the remedial measures currently occurring at the site consist of soil vapor extraction and groundwater treatment at actually 2 different facilities. The aerial image shows you kind of where this property is located at. The black dashed line denotes the extent of the property boundaries. Again, it's located southwest of Litchfield Road and Van Buren. Prior to getting into the actual contaminant transport and the issues that we're dealing with at the site, I wanted to kind of touch base a little bit on the hydrogeology, which is extremely important. You have to understand hydrogeology before you understand why the contaminants are such a problem at this particular location. First of all, the city's sole water supply out here is groundwater. We pump groundwater and we serve that water to your customers. Over the years, the Arizona Department of Water Resources has done considerable amount of research out here, and they've determined that groundwater occurs in the aquifers in the subsurface, and these aquifers have been subdivided into 3 different units: the upper alluvial unit, the middle alluvial unit, and the lower alluvial unit. The upper alluvial unit has been subdivided into subunit A, B, and C. The city's main groundwater is pumped from the upper alluvial unit, which is subunit C, not subunit A and B, and the middle alluvial unit. The interaction between the multiple aquifers, the pumping wells in the area, and the groundwater contamination in this area is extremely complicated. And one of the reasons why we're showing you this is so that you can understand the transport of groundwater, of contaminants in the subsurface. Then we'll get back to why it's an issue. The next slide shows a cross-section of what we would expect out here in the subsurface. The left axis shows you the upper alluvial unit, which is subdivided into 3 different subunits, and groundwater is transported in that upper alluvial unit, and in the middle alluvial unit, which is slightly deeper. Now, in this cross-section, the groundwater flow is from left to right. You have a Superfund site that's denoted in this slide. You have TCE, which is denoted by the blue hatch pattern in this cross-section. And what you want to pay real close attention to is the potential migration pathways, which can be seen in the red. As you see, the groundwater moving from left to right. It can also have a vertical component to it, and it's moving through the subunit B and into subunit C in some instances. In this case, it's moved across the slide there to the first production well and impacted a production well. So that production well now is no longer operational. Now, this is a hypothetical situation I'm showing you. It continues to move from left to right, and as you can see, when it comes in contact with the second production well, it migrates directly down across the bottom, or down linearly with the casing in the well, and it impacts that particular well and continues migrating. You can see there's several different potential migration pathways that we're observing here. We want to keep that in mind when we finally do start talking about the hydrodynamics facility and the contaminants associated with that. The next slide shows a schematic of actually one of the city wells, which is city well number 3. Again, on the left axis, I'm showing you the upper alluvial unit and the middle alluvial unit, and how the upper alluvial unit is subdivided. I'm also showing you the potential migration pathways and how this particular well could actually become impacted. At this point in time, I do want to indicate that this well is not impacted, but this is a potential scenario that could occur at this location. So again, you have contaminants migrating, coming in contact with the well, working vertically down the casing or the side of the well and entering the screen interval where the water enters the well and then gets brought to the surface. Now that you kind of have a feeling as to what's going on with the hydrogeology in the area, I want to get back into the hydrodynamics facility and the concerns that, or provide you with a project status as to what's been going on out there. Again, groundwater impacts within the upper alluvial unit have occurred. We have groundwater contamination in subunit A, subunit C, and the middle alluvial unit. We have active soil and groundwater remediation at the site. Groundwater TCE plumes have not been delineated at this particular location, and what that means is that we don't know what the full extent of the plume is. In addition to that, the plume continues to move. It's getting larger. Due to this, there was a settlement between Crane Company, the Department of Justice, and EPA, which was recently finalized in April of '06. This settlement requires cleanup of the site, requires that that Crane provides supplemental environmental projects within the city of Goodyear, and this is a real good thing. This is $1 million worth of funding for the city of Goodyear to identify potential properties that have known known or perceived contaminants on the property. So this funding will be used within the city limits to go identify potential risks at these properties and clean them up. The settlement also requires that Crane Company pay $6.7 million in past costs and $500,000 in penalties. The real nice thing about the settlement is that it also requires the implementation measures to ensure the provision of uninterrupted water supply, which means if the city, one of the city's wells becomes impacted, Crane Company is supposed to provide another supply source of water or provide wellhead treatment. That's something that was not available to us in the past, so this is real good.
Excuse me for just a minute. You said supposed?
I'm sorry.
Use the word supposed.
They're supposed to, yes. They're previously, you mean? Is that what you mean, sir?
They're legally obligated.
They are legally obligated through this settlement agreement to provide uninterrupted water
And the
supply.
other source means?
The other source could be they could truck the water in. You can have an interconnect like I think the city of Goodyear currently has with another service provider here in the city limits. Those are other sources.
And they would
Or they would drill another well if necessary.
And the cost is on them.
Yes, it should be. Crane Company, in regards to the settlement, is currently implementing a scope of work, and this scope of work requires them to update the operation and maintenance reporting requirements at the site. It's also requiring them to provide a groundwater investigation consisting of the installation of sentinel wells and monitor wells. 7 sentinel wells and monitor wells, 1 extraction well, and 1 injection well have been installed as of March 2006. David mentioned that there's 14 the first year. Well, as of last month, we've already installed 8 of those. Crane Company has. They're required to perform a conduit well investigation, and that particular investigation means they go out and identify wells that are not currently in use, or wells that are currently in use but within the plume that could potentially be serve as conduits and potentially impact the aquifers that are located deeper in the service area. Crane Company is required to create a groundwater model, and this groundwater model is supposed to simulate the groundwater conditions in the city area, so that if the city wants to install groundwater wells near the plume, they know what exactly is going to occur at that particular location. If it's going to draw on that plume and cause the plume to migrate towards that well, this particular model will help them do that, determine if that's the case. They're supposed to update the soil vapor extraction system. This is Crane Company's. They're supposed to update the system. And they're also supposed to need to prepare a site evaluations report, which is designed to identify all the chemicals of concern at this site. A full feasibility study was done years ago, but it was determined that it was inadequate. So they want to come back to the site and determine if there's any other chemicals of concern at the unit dynamics facility. One other positive aspect of the settlement is that there are severe penalties that would be incurred if they didn't follow or adhere to the stipulations of the settlement agreement. The next slide, now that I've showed you the hydrogeology, and we know we have potential groundwater contamination at the site. This next slide, the locations shown in yellow identify wells, production wells, or irrigation wells in the area. The red is the subunit C TCE plume, denotes the extent of that plume, and the blue denotes the extent of the subunit C plume, which is quite extensive. It's about 2.5 miles long and about 1.5 miles wide at the distal end. It's a fairly large plume. And if you look at the bottom of the aerial image there, you can see where the unit dynamics facility is at, and the way this plume is migrated, groundwater flow is towards the north at this point in time. Due to the extent of this plume that we're seeing here, this groundwater investigation has been occurring. And the primary purpose of this is to define the extent of the groundwater impacts. And this is being accomplished by the installation of many, many wells. And we'll go through these wells right now. The well locations were prioritized based on location and risk. We have priority 1, 2, and 3 wells. The priority 1 wells were to be installed by February 2007. We have 14 to be installed this first year. 8 wells have been installed so far, 1 extraction well. And this extraction well will be equipped by December 2006. The extraction well, what that serves is to pull water out of the ground, help with plume management, and allow that to kind of slow down the movement of this plume. And that's why we're having an extraction well installed. And there'll be many more installed in the future. Priority 2 wells are to be installed by February 2008. 9 wells are supposed to be installed by the second year. And then actually 1 well has already been installed. Even though it was a second-year well, we went ahead and had the well installed. And the reason being is because we determined we reprioritized this well due to some receptor risks. And what that means is we had a concern with one of the city wells, and we did not know where the plume was, so we asked that the priority 2 well be brought up to a priority 1 level and installed. Priority 3 wells are to be installed by February 2009. 7 wells are to be installed this third year, and no wells have been installed at this point in time. The next aerial image shows the same plume configuration I showed you earlier, but what in addition to that, I'm showing where several of the sentinel wells have been installed thus far, and the round or circular black dots show or indicate where these wells have been installed up to date. And if you notice, unfortunately, these wells are located within the red zone. There's nothing outside of the red zone. And the positive aspect is all this work has been done, work that should have probably been done years ago, but it's being done now. And it's good that it's being done, but the negative aspect of this is now we're finding out this plume is bigger than what was anticipated. The square red dots show you where there's extraction wells, ongoing extraction at this point in time. The circles that are not filled in are proposed sentinel wells or monitor wells. And the squares that are not filled in, the black squares that are not filled in, they're outlined black, are proposed extraction well locations. And the reason those are located where they're at is to extract water from there and hold the plume from moving any further towards the northeast and east. Most of the production wells within the city of Goodyear service area and the service area north of the freeway are located in that area. We need to hopefully control that plume migration. Given the extent of this plume, we need to find out who's at risk. And at this point in time, the city of Goodyear obviously is at risk here. City of Goodyear well number 3 is a potential well location that has a plume that's about 800 feet west of that location, and the contaminants are both in subunit A and subunit C. City wells COG 2 and 10 have been impacted and were impacted during 2003 and May of 2005 respectively. These wells are no longer operational. Crane Company continues to monitor the sentinel wells in the vicinity of City well number 3, which is at risk. They have plans of installing an extraction well west of that location, and that's all depending on groundwater quality results that we're currently waiting on. In addition to the City of Goodyear, Litchfield Park, oops, I'm sorry. The other entity is at risk here is Litchfield Park Service Company. It's a Litchfield Park Service Company in Suncor. Recent analytical results indicate that the plume has expanded in the direction of 2 Lipsco wells. 2 Suncor wells have been impacted at this point in time, and a third is at risk. Crane Company is currently evaluating potential extraction well locations in order to control the plume migration. And that's all I have at this point in time.
Now, if the wells that Lipsco has, okay, if they become contaminated and need to be replaced, is Crane Company obligated also to drill those wells for Lipsco as well as drilling them for the city?
Under the settlement agreement, yes, they are obligated. As long as that particular well location was being utilized as a drinking water supply well at the time that the settlement was achieved, yes, they're supposed to provide an uninterrupted water supply source.
So they really don't have any recourse against the city if they do have to redrill their well.
Is this Crane Company?
No.
Lipsco. Yes, correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Holland?
Just a couple of questions that have to do with the monitoring wells, because I can see this plume is definitely moving north and over into a community that a lot of us live in, so I thought I'd better check on that one. I noticed that the monitoring wells have now been overtaken by the plume, and that we have proposed monitoring wells that will be going outside of the plume area, which is where they need to be to let us know when, where. Are we reprioritizing those monitoring wells and moving the dates for their installation up, and are we sinking more?
Well, at this point in time, we have one more well to install. Crane Company is going to install one more well. And then they're going to take about 4 weeks off because they're going to change their sampling protocol in order to speed up the installation of future wells. They were having difficulties retrieving groundwater samples, so they're going to change the type of drilling method. The second year, there should be 9 additional wells. Now, if we see this plume starting to move more so, yes, there is flexibility in the system, in the settlement agreement, to reprioritize these wells.
Okay, when we do get the samples, they won't be just going into an area where the plume already exists. We'll actually be sampling outside and be able to tell where the water is.
Mayor, Councilmember Holland, we also have the quarterly technical committee meetings where we all meet with EPA and ADEQ and all the stakeholders. So on a quarterly basis, we have the most recent opportunities to evaluate everything that's related to the Superfund activities. And at that time, if that plume migration is such that it warrants a change in the work plan, that's where we can bring those issues to the forefront. But that happens every quarter, and that's the reason for it, is to stay on top of that plume migration.
My next question had to do with the information from the monitoring well is fed back into the model.
I'm sorry, could you repeat yourself?
The information that you gather from the monitoring well feeds back into your groundwater model that you've put together so that you can keep letting us know what's going on. How often is that information fed back into your groundwater model?
At this point in time, the model is still in a preliminary stage. It has not been completed. It's still being
Okay, so you're having to do it all by hand, pretty much.
There are real simple models out there. This particular model that's being developed is quite extensive, and it's been about 2 years now that they've been developing this model.
Oh, wow.
Yes, it's going through several different iterations, so we want to make sure it's right on target.
Is it going to be, in your estimate, because no one really knows about dates of these software models that are coming out, but do you think that it's going to be of value? I mean, we're continuing to move along here. We've got to be packing it with the data sooner or later.
Well, a lot of the data has already been, my understanding is that a lot of the data has already been put into the model. Right now what they're doing is recalculating the model to make sure that it mimics conditions that currently occur in the city of Goodyear areas. For example, if you put 2002 data into this model, you want to make sure that the model is mimicking the 2002 data, and we haven't been able to do that. So we want to make sure that we calculate and recalculate it until we make sure it properly runs.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Scott.
Couple of questions. First, Tino. First, thank you for the presentation. It was very helpful.
Welcome,
This is not
Councilman.
a simple subject, but you made it sound like it was a simple subject. I have a couple of questions. Specific areas. Recently, we sunk a monitor well just east of Bullard on Earl. Have we sampled that yet?
Councilmember Scott, I believe that has been sampled, but I have not seen those results at this time.
It'd be important to know, for us to know as a council, or at least as an individual, I'd like to know whether that's positive, because that's getting awfully close to Double Creek there.
I will inquire about that and provide you with those results, sir.
Next question. Agreement, one of the agreements we had with Crane, and this is more for Dave, was the unidynamic building, and they were going to make this look real nice. They did do some things at first. As a matter of fact, the city did it for them and then build them. Now it's deteriorating again. What are we going to do about that unpleasant, ugly site there?
Mayor, Councilmember Scott, they did come out of the box quickly in terms of their cleanup. Since then, we've had some graffiti that the city actually went out there and cleaned up, but it's certainly not to the standard that we expect. So we are meeting with the Crane representatives next week. And I stand corrected. We are meeting with the Crane representatives Wednesday morning, and one of the issues that's ripe for discussion is additional cleanup. And what we'd like to see is, with that remediated groundwater from that site, COG4, is to use that for irrigation to make sure that we can green up the facility, some dust control mitigation, and just bring up the landscaping to city standards.
The last question, and I think this consent decree is almost adequate. You know, but the purpose of this was, like any other legal situation, was to make this city whole again. That was the end point. And maybe it is and maybe it isn't going to do that over a projected period of time. But right away, walking into this, it's costing the city $95,000 a year as part of their obligation, which shouldn't exist. If this was settled so that the city would be made whole again because of a situation that Crane created, I don't see why we should be spending $95,000 a year. And I'd like that answered.
Mayor, Councilmember Scott, the approximately $95,000 a year that we spend is partial payment to Burgess and Nyepel for all the work that Dino does in terms of technical consulting. Incorporated in that also, though, is the modeling work and other groundwater-related work product in terms of siting future wells, avoiding siting wells that may impact one way or the other the existing plume. So there's more than just the Superfund-related work. In terms of segregating those costs out and getting Crane to reimburse us, that was part of the settlement discussion, and the settlement is going to have to stand on its own merit. I tend to agree with you. It may not be the best of circumstances, but there were other benefits that the city derived from that settlement that did generate some good things for the city.
Well, thank you, but they contaminated our area, and I just think it's unfair. It should cost us a penny in expenses, whether they technical or any other expenses, in order to help them decontaminate our area. But you've already answered the question. Thank you very much.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah. Again, thank you for the presentation. It's very interesting to note that Crane came to us over 2 years ago and gave us an update on where we were and what was happening to that plume. And at that point, I thought we were putting down enough monitoring wells and enough injection wells and enough excretion wells to begin to stop this plume from moving. And now the plume has even moved further and gone beyond what we had seen before. To me, that is a problem. Where does it stop? We can't just continue to have this. And I'm not concerned that it's just going into one area, or someone say, a couple of people here noting that it's going north into other areas. That water all mixes. Everyone in Goodyear gets that water. So my concern is the fact that the plume has got to be stopped. And what can we do to get this plume stopped? And is Crane doing everything? And if not, then what more needs to be done? And if not, these people need to get on this. I'm not satisfied for them to come to us again and say, it's moving even further north, it's moving even, and it's wider than it was the last time we saw this graphic. That it continues to move. And then that's one question. The other one is chemical analysis was done how many years ago? And there hasn't been a new one done since. Is that true? So,
Mayor, Vice Mayor, I'll let Dino answer your second question. As to your first question, it's taken 2 years for Crane Company and the federal government to negotiate their final consent decree. And to be candid with you, it wasn't until this mayor and council decided to sue Crane that we actually saw substantive things move forward. So was it soon enough? No, but the council moved forward with its threat of litigation. That really got us off the dime. And it has taken 2 years for a final consent decree to be negotiated, and now it's just being implemented. Again, I'm not saying it's good, bad, or indifferent. It's probably too late, but it's not too little in that over the last 2 years there have been a number of extraction and monitoring wells that were drilled. There is a lot of data collection that has gone on over the last couple of years. The only thing is, from a technical standpoint, we have much better mapping of where that plume is, and we can attack that plume in a much more succinct, strategic way to get the best possible cleanup in the most timely manner. In terms of the on-site tests, Dino?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, in regards to the water quality, is that the question you're referring to, is the water quality?
You said the analysis was done several years ago. I think you said that in that third. The chemicals of concern were solvents, heavy metals, explosive,
Correct.
all this ethanol, ketone, and all.
The,
Is anything more done? Has anything more done beyond that to
Vice Mayor,
to
no,
see
at this
if
point in time, nothing has been done. What we're doing is, under the settlement agreement, they're required to go there and reassess the previous uses of that facility. It was not adequately reviewed previously. So what they've already completed the evaluation, and they're going to start their investigation at that facility here this upcoming year.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And the last one is, one more. The lower arroyo unit goes down, the third one on down. We don't pull water from that.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, is it from the middle alluvial unit?
No, from the lower one.
The lower, no, we do not. It's just cost prohibitive and the water quality is not very good.
It's not good.
Correct.
So it's okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Lord?
How are we handling educating our communities?
Mayor, Councilmember Lord, every time there's a Superfund-related drilling, we work through, there are specific contact protocols that we've established with Crane Company to contact our public information officer, the Water Resources Department, police, fire, streets, and community initiatives. Several weeks before any drilling activity takes place, there are door hangers that are hung on each and every one of the houses and businesses in that particular area. I don't have a specific radius. I'd have to double check with Paula Alardo. But that's done. We contact the local media in terms of the Republic and the West Valley View to notify them that this kind of activity is taking place, as well as activity that's posted on the city website. I also, our Water Resources Department certainly offers our services with education and public outreach, and as I've said to you particularly, we'll go anywhere, anytime, any place to answer any questions that our citizens or customers or businesses have with regard to any Superfund related activity.
Thank you.
Okay, nice presentation. Let me just, I think one question is,
Yeah,
I thought everybody
just
did.
a presentation. I mean, unless you're looking for
Did you have something to ask?
feedback from us.
Well, I'd just like to say, in looking at this configuration of the plume, there are three of us who are sitting on this council right now that have been on this council for, let's say, 8 years plus. And when we first came on board, this plume was much smaller than this. What concerns me at this particular time, what is the potential, since you state that it will take more than 40 years to get to the bottom of this for the cleanup. Is this thing going to expand in that time frame? If it does, we're in trouble.
Mayor, council member. The plume, what we're trying to do right now, we're not sure if the plume's going to continue to expand. What we're trying to do is work with some of the different service providers like Lipsco and Suncor to have them reduce their pumping in order for this plume not to migrate towards the northeast. I suspect the plume will continue to migrate. There's not much we can do at this point in time until additional extraction wells are installed in order to limit the amount of movement that you see in the plume at this time.
And David, if you'll supply the Palm Valley drilling as well when you answer Councilman Scott's request.
Yes, Councilman Sousa would be happy to do that. Yes, sir.
The one's on Palm Valley Boulevard.
Mayor?
Thank you, Mr.
Councilmember Antonio?
I have to ask this question. This doesn't feel, to me, and I may be in the minority here, it doesn't feel like new information to me, but it sort of sounds like it is new information to some of us. But I mean, the plume migrating, I thought we heard many a times before that it was migrating to the northwest into the northeast. I'm assuming this is a periodic update. We're going to get periodic updates like this from time to time, correct?
Councilmember Antoniak,
That's the intent of this evening?
That's the intent of this evening is to bring the council members up to speed on the settlement that was recently adopted. In addition, to show that a considerable amount of work has been done by Crane Company.
Okay. I just want to make sure I didn't come into this with the wrong mindset this evening.
Mayor, Councilmember Antoniak, the budget for Crane Company in this coming year is $30 million. That's a sizable commitment. I wish it could be $300 million, but I'm not the federal government.
Okay. Councilmember Hall?
Just something really quick. When one of the council people asked about, where the monitoring wells or the extraction wells are going to be drilled, there was a paper put together, a sheet that shows the area and where all the wells are going and time frames and all of that. Is that something that could be provided to the rest of the council people? And all the wells? I don't know.
Mayor, Councilmember Holland, everything that has been drilled to date is mapped. This is, as Dino indicated, these are the most recent activities. But in getting back to Councilmember Sousa's question, we can take you back from literally day one, and that data is available in map form. So we would be happy to provide that with the latest and greatest information. So you have the current. You have up-to-date information as of today, going back to day one.
Right. I thought that map was very valuable information because it shows where all our wells are sitting now, not just monitoring wells, but where all our water wells are sitting. And it shows the monitoring wells and the extraction wells. It's kind of a complete picture. And I have one. I found it was very valuable, and so I was wondering if maybe some of the other council people might like that too. Thank you.
Mayor, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I just want to I guess, yeah, we wish that we'd been more aggressive with Crane in the 80s, but I don't know that we could have been. I do know that it's been very challenging to have dialogue with Crane for many years, for whatever reason. I'm sure they could defend that difficulty. But EPA and Goodyear have come together, and I congratulate you on that. Just one question. We know the plume is increasing in breadth, but over the last many years, you have calculated the micrograms of TCE per liter of water in various places. Now, repeated testing at those places, did that lead you to believe that at the specific locations, the pollution was increasing or decreasing?
Mayor Kavanaugh, council members, the repeated testing that was performed out in the monitor wells showed that the plume was shifting. Some monitor wells were decreasing in concentration. Other monitor wells that were non-detect, we did not have any detectable TCE in the wells, were increasing in concentration. We knew that the plume was shifting, but we just did not know how much it shifted because we didn't have any other additional wells in place, sentinel wells.
Boy, this is complicated.
It is.
Wow.
It's not spreading, it's moving.
It's moving, yes. Initially, a couple of years ago, the plume was moving towards the north predominantly, northwest. Now what we're seeing is a northeasterly migration or axis.
Okay.
Which is natural, which is why you're talking to Lipsco and to Suncor about decreasing the amount of water they're pumping out, because they're making a void, and so the water's having to shift into that space, correct?
Councilmember Antoniak, that is correct, yes.
That's why we see the shifting east, west, north, south, whatever.
Correct. In addition to that, there's the Luke Depression. Years ago, there was a lot more pumping towards the northwest. The regional groundwater flow is towards the northwest, and we have fewer pumping wells in that direction, a greater number of pumping wells towards the northeast now, and that's why you're seeing this shift.
And this is more reason to work diligently with Adaman and also with the wastewater treatment, new water treatment plant, CAP water treatment plant on Virgily. So, okay, thank you. Very nice day, thanks.
Mayor, council, thank you for the opportunity.
Mayor and council, thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll now talk about the IGA between Goodyear and the Maricopa County Library District. Hey, Mario.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Tonight, staff is seeking direction on the IGA with Maricopa County Library District to share in the cost of providing library services. A regional library has been discussed at the city center as part of the city center, which was anticipated in 2009. The purpose of discussing a library outside of the city center location is based on an opportunity that the city has to partner with the library district, in which the county will fund the operation and maintenance and the city will fund the cost for facilities. The district policy states that the county supports cities and towns with population of 50,000 or less, and once a community's population exceeds 50,000, the district begins to transfer that operational cost back to the city. The city is currently at 46,213, which is based on the census mid-year update. Next year, MAG will update that census, or that figure. It will likely exceed 50,000. So if there is interest in partnering with the county and IGA, it should be negotiated by February 2007. I have a few slides on the fiscal impact of the IGA. And before I begin, I just wanted to point out that representatives from the County Library District are in the audience, Harry Courtwright and Jim Govern, in case you have any questions.
Could you introduce him, please?
Yes, we've got the director from the district, Harry Courtwright, and special manager, Jim Govern.
Welcome.
This first slide is the estimated cost for operations and maintenance for a library over a 10-year period, from 2007 to 2016. Top line is basically, it gives you an idea of the cost for O&M. It's $1 million a year that's planned in 2007. That increases 4% each year. The two lines below the top line represent the terms of the agreement. Those are 5-year terms. And basically, the city negotiates an IGA in 2007, and the city's population at that point in time will be less than 50,000. So according to county policy, the county funds 100% of the O&M between 2007 and 11. The agreement expires, and there are options to renew. If the city decides to renew the option for another 5-year term, the city at that point in 2012 will be above 50,000, and according to policy, then the O&M will be split for the second term. This is basically the library district is also providing books, materials, furniture, fixtures, and equipment, which is typically a cost for this responsibility for the city. In this case, they're downsizing a branch, 40,000 square feet in Phoenix. A lot of this is already in storage. So in this case, the books, materials, and FF&E are coming with as a part of this agreement. The obligation that the city has is to fund the cost for facilities. So this gives you an idea of the cost over a 10-year period through 2016 of leasing, which includes TIs, purchase, and construction. So about $2.9 million for a lease over 10 years, 2.7 for purchase, and construction's at 2.6. It's based on a 10,000 square foot facility. Just briefly on those options, if there is support to move forward with the IGA, this gives you an idea of the process. The city will issue an RFP for lease or purchase. We'll work with the county to identify the desired space, the parking requirements, and so forth. Advertised in the fall, work with the county to select the best site in January, bring a proposal back to council January, February, and based on the tenant improvements that run with the site, it could be open in the fall of 2007. The bottom option is construction. Like I said, the library has been discussed at the city center, and it was also mentioned in the COAC as a possible location. But to give you an idea of the timelines associated with construction, staff needs to identify a site, and design and construction is about a 24-month process, so we're talking an opening in winter of '08 or spring of '09. This is a summary of the total costs for this partnership. It gives you an idea that the county's coming forward with $10.6 million. A lot of that is O&M, $9 million. The city has $6.6 million that they'll be contributing over that 10-year period. And you can see that's O&M, lease, and a portion for building maintenance. That's based, again, on a 10,000 square foot facility. $17.26 million over a 10-year period. That's what it costs it's an estimated cost to run a library for 10 years. The city's at 6.6, the county's at 10.6. This is an idea. Without the county, basically the burden falls on the city to fund that service. The key pros and cons for the IGA. The key pros is the financial partnership that we have as a city working with the county to share the costs of providing the service. It's also a key service that's been identified as part of the customer satisfaction survey and the image committee, and also frequent phone calls to City Hall asking for the service. So this is an opportunity to provide the service sooner than anticipated. The cons associated with the IGA, the project competes with other city priorities for city funding. So, additional positions, other capital projects. It's just there are a lot of projects out there that are fighting for the same resources. And another con is the challenges associated with closing an interim facility. If the city intends to lease the space as an interim until the city center is open, it's just in discussions with the county, it's always difficult to do that. So the city needs to understand that there are challenges associated with closing an interim facility. There are things that staff can do, and that is, model of the new site, from day one, advertise that this is an interim, and market the 30,000 or larger facility that will be coming in the future, and that this is not intended to serve as the city regional library. So in conclusion, staff is seeking feedback with regard to whether or not the city should proceed with negotiating the IGA for county library services. And if there is support to move forward, then I'd like to identify some of the options that have the greatest support. The staff recommends an RFP to lease or purchase a site, but there are also options related to construction. And the COAC mentioned some opportunities with the high school, expanding the Loma Linda Community Center, and also just identifying the library at the city center as priority. That's it. With that, I can throw it back.
Okay, thank you. Start on this side. Councilmember Holland?
Well, I want to make, that was very good, and I appreciate that, and it sounds like it's a good opportunity for us. I want to make sure that whatever I say comes off sounding very positive, because I feel that libraries have changed since I was a person that was spending a lot of time in the library. A lot of folks go to the library now because of the equipment that's there and readily available to them, and maybe they've been sent out on a special class assignment, but they don't go in and say, hand me those encyclopedias like we used to do. They want to get on and they want to search. So I would want to make sure that whatever we set up from an equipment point of view is also worked out as just as we would work out the books situation in the periodicals and other things that go in the library. One thing I was interested in was the downsizing in Phoenix and what's caused that, and also to mention the fact that I would certainly be interested in supporting an early library, because I think it's a place where our folks can gather. I don't want to say it's become a social place, but it is a place where you go and you talk about the latest book that you've read, and the library offers more services than just going to read a book. They do have regular get-togethers. They have book clubs that people come and discuss books. So I'd like to know about the downsizing and to let you know that I'm positive about this.
I think the best person to answer that is Harry Courtwright. Could you?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Holland, you pick a very difficult subject for me to discuss. The library district constructed a building, I'll try to make this very short, which is now called the George L. Campbell Branch Library on 32nd Street. When that building was built about 15 years ago, that area was unincorporated in Maricopa County. That building was originally designed to be a central library for the entire county. After the building was built, just before it opened, the city of Phoenix annexed that area and has since annexed a considerable amount of property north of that facility. The district continued to operate it. It's a 57,000 square foot building. We continued to operate it within the city of Phoenix, even though we had no agreement with the city of Phoenix. The Library District Board has been trying to resolve that issue since prior to my arrival here, and I've been here almost 9 years. Because we don't operate libraries in cities and towns, incorporated cities and towns, unless we have an intergovernmental agreement with that city or town. We did not have one with Phoenix. The board at last made the decision that we would have to resolve the issue of that building. We have had discussions with the city of Phoenix. We attempted to, actually, we offered to give the building and the contents to the city of Phoenix at no cost. We even offered to put in some money to help make the transition of the cost of operating it. It was costing the district about $2.5 million a year to operate that building. The city of Phoenix was not interested in acquiring the building. The board made the decision we would close the facility and sell the building. We have downsized the library to about 10,000 square feet. We have leased out a portion of the building to a charter school, and we are in the process of negotiating the sale of the building to another educational institution. And that 10,000 square foot library will be closed within 5 years.
Okay. Thank you. That is a reasonable explanation of what happened. Okay.
But not very pleasant for those folks who use it, I could tell you, or for my phone calls.
Sure, I'm sure. Thank you very much.
Barry, why don't you address the issues of how libraries have changed and what is the future perspective on libraries?
Thank you.
That's good. Thank you.
Our concept of library service in the district has really changed over the past 10 years. We are much more an electronic library than what we used to be. Anything we can buy, any reference materials that we can buy in electronic format, we buy it in electronics. We don't buy the hard copy. We provide many computers in our buildings. It varies from in our small libraries to maybe 10 to our larger libraries as many as 50, 60, 70. We are now equipping our larger facilities with Wi-Fi so that the public will be able to bring in their own computers and have access to all the resources that we have available. We see our libraries as community centers, as popular reading libraries. If you go into the Surprise Library, the Northwest Regional, it has very much, I think, the feel of a bookstore. We use bookstore shelving. We use bookstore marketing techniques to make material available to the public. Easy, simple, and self-service. Just as we go into grocery stores and check out our own groceries, you go into our libraries, you check out your own materials. It means you can walk in, find what you want, check it out, and walk out the door. You can also check your material back in yourself. One of the biggest problems we've had in libraries are people who say, oh, I returned that material. Well, we don't have any record that they returned it, and then do they pay for it or not pay for it? Now, in our libraries, such as the one in Surprise, you put the materials in a machine that looks like an ATM machine, and it gives you back a receipt telling you that you returned it and what it is you returned. And our customers like that. Libraries are very different today than they were when I started in this profession. They're not quiet anymore. We get occasional complaints about that, but they're not quiet places anymore. They're active community centers with all kinds of programming activities, all kinds of electronic materials. We have downloadable books, we have downloadable DVDs, we have downloadable music in the libraries now. You can even do it from your home shortly. I mean, that's not up and running yet, but it will be shortly. So if you want a DVD, you'll be able to go to our website, download it at your home, and be able to watch it. And then it automatically kills itself off at a certain point. So libraries are very different today. They really don't need to be as big as they used to be. Because in the old days, prior to all this electronic and automation stuff, you needed hard copies of everything. Now, we don't have back files of magazines because it's all online. And you can access all of that online material from home. So you don't even have to go to the library to gain access to it. Roughly 30% of the use of our online resources are from people who are not in a library. They're either at home or at school or in a place of business.
And there's people that prefer the old-fashioned way, still have the books that they can get their hands on, and
I'm one of those.
it's kind of a comfort
Yes,
thing.
you know, and we buy bestsellers and the popular titles in literally hundreds of copies. We don't actually buy them, we lease them. So that you don't have a long waiting list for bestsellers anymore. You can get it within a reasonable length of time. Nobody likes to be number 104 on a waiting list for a bestseller. You want to read it today. And so we try to meet that demand as best we can.
Thank you very much. That helps a lot.
Councilmember Scott?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mario. It was a good presentation, but a couple of comments here. First of all, we saw this coming, the electronic library, years ago in the sciences. Obviously, at the time you receive a textbook in any of the sciences, it's outdated. So this has been a real boost where 20 years ago I walked into the U of A medical library, and the striking thing was the absence of books, because they're essentially worthless in those areas. But having said that, I'm going to need some more information here, Mario, and I know we don't have to make a decision tonight, but when we talk about lease versus purchase versus construction, so forth and so on, I'm one in favor of construction, but I need some information here. How long will it take us to get the architectural design completed and get this construction underway so that we can intelligently decide on whether we want an interim, such as a lease, until we get all that done? So I don't expect that answer tonight, but that's the kind of information we'll need in order to make a decision.
Okay.
Thank you.
If you did it with the city center.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, just thank you very much, Mario. Very nice presentation, and thank you to everyone who came out tonight from the library. We appreciate it. Now, my understanding is we're in competition with other agencies and other cities for the monies for this library. Is that true?
No.
That money is there, $10 million or whatever you had, and that money is there?
Yeah.
So it's not a matter of urgency that we come up with our share?
No.
And because that's, I want to make certain that we understand as far as the technical side of this and all the other.
There is an urgency for the IGA, though.
Right.
Or you don't get the money.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying,
the
but that
urgency
is,
But we aren't competing with someone else for it.
For funding.
okay, that's good. Thank you very much.
Over here?
Yeah, my question was, if we so desire to have it put into the city center, how is that designed, time frame? I mean, I know you said, somebody can address.
We can go back to the slide you had up there for winter 208.
Okay, so we do the agreement now, in that, because the agreement is done, we're still covered if the building doesn't get built
That's right.
to
If we
2008.
sign the agreement in January, before we're
Right.
officially over the
And we're fine, no
50,000.
matter if we hit over 50,000, which we probably will at that time.
Right, then
Okay.
we have an agreement. That has to go back to the county district, their board, for approval. I think they have the understanding that the city is working to find an interim space, so that needs to be discussed on the county side as to whether or not they would want to enter into an IGA where construction won't really happen until 2008 or 9, or at least that's when the facility will be open. But maybe they will, because the first part of the agreement doesn't really impact them, and it's just the last 2 years where they provide 100% of the funding. Does that make sense?
And I think, Jim, we had this discussion that we could do like a Barnes and Noble, or we could have a coffee bar, sandwich shop within the library, even though the county's running it, so we can design that type of library. That's it.
Councilmember Antonia?
State that again, the 100% 2-year, Mario, that you just stated? Sorry. Or were we,
The top line is the O&M over a 10-year period. The
Right.
bottom line, okay, that's the first term. And let's say we signed the IGA in 2007, but we're not open until 2010.
right,
So then, basically, the agreement states that the county pays for 100% of the O&M for 10 and 11. Then it expires.
got it.
And then we have the option to renew, and that's when we're above, and it's kind of a transition for the O&M. It comes back to the city. Is that correct?
Okay. Okay, so that time just gets compressed. As we move out in terms of construction, we compress that time. In terms of, so the IGA would start whether or not we were open and operating. Okay. Yeah, I tend to favor location. I tend to favor finding a permanent spot versus an interim spot, just because of the ramifications of moving an interim spot. If we go into an interim spot, just as you stated publicly, making sure, I mean, if it's got to say over the door, interim library, or, temporary location, that sort of thing. So that way, we don't end up into a future argument about we're moving a library one way or another out of a specific area of the community. Second, I tend to favor, just the numbers, given as close as they are, I tend to favor the construction. I do question in terms of the funding for the library district. This is more for my own knowledge. Where does the library district garner their funding from?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, the library district is a separate governmental entity in Arizona created by a state law that gave county governments the ability to create library districts. Maricopa County created the library district almost 20 years ago now, 17 or so. At that time, they appointed themselves the board. So the library district board of directors are in fact the 5 Maricopa County supervisors. They sit separately as the board of the library district, and they levy a separate tax which is dedicated to the library district. So our tax rate, which is 0.0507 cents, is where we get our money from. That's separate tax.
So they levy countywide.
Countywide. It's levied in every municipality in the county, whether there is a library in that, separate library in that municipality or not.
I don't want to get too deep into a philosophical discussion, but I'm sure you hear the argument all the time. So you come and you pay for operation and maintenance of a library up until a certain extent, but yet I'm still being levied a tax, and you take that away later on down the line.
But we continue to provide access. As an example, this year we bought $1.5 million worth of electronic resources, which we made available to every public library in the county at no cost.
So you still continue in terms of a support role, but the O&M starts to tail off.
That's right.
Okay.
Councilmember Souza?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mario, in the information we have here, you've indicated you might be considering the location at Loma Linda Community Center. I'd like to see a plan of what you envision, or where you envision this library to be on those premises. As it is right now, that's pretty crowded. And the only area that I could see you move in would be taking over the tennis court, for example.
Construction is, it's been discussed at the city center.
I'm sorry?
Construction for a library has been discussed at the city center. It's just staff was kind of looking at other properties or other opportunities that are out there and are possible. There are a lot of questions with this site. It's very far from actually happening, but just to give you a sense of what staff has talked about, it's basically expanding this building right here, providing parking for the site, and building onto this site, or basically we were talking about building on the tennis courts. So it's just you're weighing.
That's the only location you could put.
Right. You would provide the parking and build an interim facility that can serve as an interim library, and then when you move the library, it's a larger community facility for public rec programs and so forth. Just the concept.
Which they've needed in that area, so that would fulfill that.
I like what you provide here for the future use of this, to improving the area and have a tendency to really have people think about improving properties in that particular area. And being a representative of the council in the historic Goodyear area, I think the concept is excellent. The only thing, I would say that in conjunction with the library, we ought to start thinking really about a senior center too, because these are the folks that are going to be using facilities such as this nature. And I appreciate Mr. Courtwright's comment about how libraries have changed in the past many years. And strange, it's interesting to note that one of the presidents of a university that we're interviewing said exactly that. The libraries are not what we have an image of in the past. They are electronic, and that's the way they're used today. So I appreciate Mr. Cartwright's making that comment and making it known to us that this is the makeup of libraries in Maricopa County today. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you both for your comments.
Councilmember Holland?
Mario, have we thought about some of the buildings that are in the historic Goodyear right down Western Avenue? There seems to be some that are empty or being renovated, or that might fit the concept of a library without having to construct.
Yeah, I think if there's support to move forward with lease or purchase, then the city goes through an RFP process. We work with the county and build the specs and requirements, and we open it up to everybody so that other property owners have an opportunity to respond. But there's certainly possibilities along.
Well, we were looking for a way to kind of revive that area, so you're thinking along that lines. It's good.
Mario, we have differing views here, so I see your challenge over the last several months. But we have to have an IGA signed by probably early 2007, is that correct? Although we don't have to have the location agreed to. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Just the fact that we would do it. But haven't we already decided that the first permanent library is going to be in the city center?
Absolutely, we have.
Yeah.
An
we
image
can't-
committee, and from the city center citizens committee, that was top of the list. Always has been the library.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the public has spoken on that.
Yeah, I think, let's like number E here, or letter E too. I'm not sure we're ready to discuss that either. But we need to discuss the library, I think, at our retreat. And when do we want to do this? In conjunction with all the other things that we want to do. I really it'd be difficult to convince me that we should be building something new for a temporary facility.
Me too.
But it would make sense to lease space that a developer, or not, a landowner would like to lease to us for temporary use until we have our building, which could be in 5 years, but isn't going to be before then, I don't think. I may be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But,
I hope you are too.
yeah, it'd be nice if that would be great.
Yeah.
Well, one of the questions that I had written down here is what will occur when the city places the library in the city center complex? Well, I haven't forgot that. I haven't forgotten that.
But do we agree to go ahead with the IGA?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
We
absolutely.
can't, wait a minute.
We can't vote on
We
it.
can't vote on it.
No, but we agree to move in that, to get, Mario, he understands we want that. Correct?
Yeah, can I clarify, is there direction to move forward with an RFP?
Can't.
Just put it on the
Can't
street?
do that.
On it.
But
We can talk more on the 18th, though,
Okay.
in conjunction with our plans for the future. Right?
Yeah, I think that works.
yes.
Okay, thank you, Mario.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, we're now for the city facilities master plan.
Hello, Mayor. Hello, council members. My name's Neil Barton. I am the new project manager for Public Works. I work underneath Don French and Cato. I'm here to actually, with our design consultant, Deutsch Associates, Jamie Curry and Tammy Carr. We're here to update the council and about the citywide facility needs assessment. Since the last time that our associates had actually contacted you, we've actually had one public meeting, and in regards to that, the consultants have had the opportunity to further study and incorporate the individual studies that we're actually undertaking currently. The study that Deutsch Associates is completing is estimated to be completely finalized within about 60 days. In regards to that, at that time, the council will be presented with the final presentation and the results of the complete study, the recommendations, and a master list of the facility projects for consideration, prioritization, and the potential for funding. And at that time, I'd like to introduce Jamie and Tammy.
Mayor, Council, good evening. Tonight we want to talk to you about the process that our project has taken so far, what we have learned both from your input, from staff input, and from the citizens' input. And then we want to talk a little bit about our future strategies for funding projects and get your input on those strategies. This project began in June when we first presented to you. At that time, you provided us with some personal prioritization of 12 projects that are currently listed in the CIP. Since then, we have had the public meeting, as Neil mentioned. Working also with Public Works, we have also met with the Community Development and the Economic Development Department to brainstorm different ways that projects can be designed and constructed. We are here to gather some further ideas from you tonight, and then we will be refining our document. You may notice that this schedule has been extended a bit from our original schedule, and I'd like to kind of cover the reasoning behind that. It was extremely important for the staff to make sure that our study incorporated all of the master plans for specific facilities. As such, we have extended our schedule a bit to make sure that we are able to incorporate all of those, specifically the update to the Parks Master Plan, which is due to be completed in April, but they plan to have a draft in December. And we've been working with Logan Simpson to make sure that we have all that information. So our final draft, or our final presentation has been extended just a bit to make sure that we incorporate them as well. As you can see up here, I've got all of the master plans that are ongoing or else nearly completed. A couple of them specifically noted as complete except for needing a site assignment to be finalized prior to completing those studies. So again, we were here in June. We asked you to rank your priorities on 12 CIP projects that are currently listed. Number one on your priority list was the City Hall, and the top 4 projects there really had the highest priorities: water and wastewater facilities, the police and fire substations, and then the police and fire admin complex. As you're aware, the water and wastewater facilities are currently under construction. Then I also wanted to tell you how the public meeting went. It was held on October 5th. We had 7 staff members from Deutsch Associates, as well as several city staff members in attendance to make sure that all the citizens there got a lot of personal attention, and they definitely did. We had about 20 citizens attend, and we had set up in stations for them to look at current facilities, specifically some of the facilities that they probably don't get to see on a regular basis, Public Works, operations, that kind of thing that they might not interact with. And then we also had stations for them to learn about citizen amenities and citizen services. Finally, we asked them to fill out priority listings as well, and I will clarify when I show you their priority listings, we only asked their opinions on citizen amenities. We did not feel it was appropriate for them to be giving prioritization on services such as the Public Works or police and fire stations. Those decisions really are not going to be based on citizen preference. So, oh, and then I also did want to show you some of their comments from the surveys. I don't know if everyone can see those on their screen.
Faster. There's a couple of them to talk about speeding up.
Essentially, all 3 of them encourage speed of construction.
Naturally.
So, given that, the citizens were given 6 projects that we both discussed with them and then asked them to prioritize. The libraries and community centers were at the very top of their list, and I would like to point out that this is exactly in line with the 2004 Citizen Survey. This is exactly the same priorities that were listed on that survey.
We understand that the Mayor and Council's commitment to providing current City of Goodyear residents with quality citizen amenities. We also understand that due to your expansive growth in population over the last 3 years, the residents have increased expectations. So we've conducted a cursory review of other West Valley cities who've also experienced the majority of their increased population over the last 3 years. We centered our focus of the survey on the City of Goodyear's citizens' top priorities, as well as the Mayor and Council's top priorities that you outlined for us in June of this year. As you can see, the City of Surprise currently has a City Hall, which is in design, 2 Maricopa County Library District facilities, which that was a timely presentation this evening, an aquatic center, as well as a community pool and 2 recreation centers. Some of their community centers are part of an intergovernmental agreement with some of the school districts, so something that we'll get to a little bit further in our presentation. The City of Avondale currently has a City Hall, which was completed approximately 2 years ago, has a public library, and also has 2 community centers. The residents of the City of Goodyear currently today seem to be very pleased overall with the progress the Mayor and Council is making with projects, as well as the planned facilities and amenities that are coming up. And as you can see by the comments, they just want it to happen expeditiously.
So, given the information that we have collected, we would like to make a couple of recommendations to you tonight, and I would invite your input on this, not the last slide, but if you have any comments immediately, we would definitely welcome them. First of all, aggressively pursue design and construction of 3 projects for the City Center, specifically the City Hall, the library, and the Public Safety Admin Building. Obviously, as Tammy said, this is very timely in the discussion of the library. The second thing that we believe is essential in your future facilities is to aggressively pursue land, specifically multi-generational and community centers in existing neighborhoods was a top concern of the residents that were at the public information meeting. Public Works corporate yard and satellite facilities, and then also police and fire satellite facilities. I wanted to fit the entire city on this map, and so I hope that it's legible. But what I really wanted to present is that all of the existing facilities, which are the Black Star, which would be probably covers this building, City Hall, and the Public Works and Police because it's such a large star. The planned city center property, the existing wastewater treatment plant, dog park, are really focused into a smaller area of where the city will be based on the 2020 general plan. We really want to encourage purchasing land aggressively in the areas where you do not currently have land. And, I would even go so far as to say, even if there's not a designated use for it at this time, to make sure that that land is available for future recreational, police, fire, whatever needs may arise that we can't predict at this time. So what we'd really like to discuss tonight and really get your input on are 3 specific strategies. Number 1, land banking, as I just mentioned. Number 2, intergovernmental agreements, which obviously seems to be a very timely subject. As we said, the City of Surprise already has the county libraries. Other things that that city has done is to have recreational and multi-generational facilities attached to schools, where the school districts have paid for the operations and maintenance, and the city has contributed to their construction budgets. Obviously, it's a much lower cost to build onto a construction project that is ongoing as opposed to building a freestanding facility. And then the last thing we want to talk to you about tonight are public-private partnerships. There are some examples of successful public-private partnerships within the state of Arizona. Mojave County recently completed a project in September 2005 with a developer for an office building there. Another project that was a little more applicable is the City of Dallas completed a project, and that was actually back in 1999, in a public-private partnership with Kroger supermarkets, interestingly enough. And the branch library and the supermarket share a parking lot, and therefore the attendance at the library actually increased immediately based on that setup with the new grocery store being constructed there. So there really are some creative options that we'd like to explore with you, working with developers who are already within the city to accomplish those ends. And we would welcome your input.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or the general to respond to?
Nothing, but I think the answer to the city center is that public-private partnership, which then allows other monies to be used for our public works and our fire and police administration building, which they need desperately in both of those areas. I just think that's the way to look at it for our city center, in my view.
Question maybe for staff, just to frame a reference for me. The land banking was something we haven't discussed a whole lot about. Land banking, we haven't discussed a lot about on council. But when did we, that first 40 acres at that corner of the city center, when did we acquire that? Or how long has the city owned that?
80s.
That's what I thought.
1986, we originally purchased land at Bullard and I-10. We then sold that, or exchanged it for the Yuma site in 1988.
Yeah. We definitely need to be thinking about that as we go down south.
And then we also purchased the roughly 100 acres down by the wastewater treatment plant, which is now in the middle of a freeway corridor. So that's an opportunity to do some land exchanges there.
Will we ever have an opportunity to use the Duncan Farm property?
We have 40 acres at Duncan Farms. If any industrial party wishes to purchase that, yes. And we're beginning to actively market that.
Yes, sir.
Would it be,
something just came to mind when you said the arrangement that you had with the Kroger store. We've got Albertsons over here that's vacant. And I understand that Ross Apparel is going to be taking over a part of that? No? Wouldn't that be...
Ross is buying Albertsons in some parts of the
but
state.
not here. Okay.
They got one right up the street. Wouldn't make sense.
Yeah.
They got, yeah, that's okay.
No, I'm talking about the facility itself.
Right.
That should be available for city library, or function of the city. Well, we're going to let the property stand vacant and an eyesore like we're experiencing at Western and Litchfield Road?
There is an offer on that building.
Is there?
Yeah, from a private concern.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Sousa, that property happens to be 65,000 square feet, so that's also one of the constraints as we looked at it for a library.
Mayor and council members, if we may, this slide actually explains the land banking a little bit more. It shows Duncan Farms, which currently is in Luke Air Force Base safety zone, so there's limited uses to that property, but it does show that the city owns that. The blue stars on this slide actually show areas of the city that we should consider some land banking for future uses so that there could be better coverage amongst the entire city for recreational centers, multi-generational centers. And again, this will be refined further in our study as the park master plan populates our study more with how many facilities and whether they be branch versus main facilities the city residents and the city desires.
Vice Mayor?
that's exactly what, in dealing with those, and I noticed this on the map, and I see where those stars are. These are mostly undeveloped areas, but you're planning for the future, and we need to bank those now. Our developers need to step forward and put that land aside for the city, for these facilities. They're bringing in new population, and I think it's only fair that these developers are the ones that we should put the onus on. They are the ones who should set this aside and contribute this to the city, and I think we need to put the pressure on them to do just that. Us buying each of those areas because we need more open area that hasn't been developed yet is putting the financial burden on the residents who have been here for years and where they live in areas where a lot of that is developed. And I think it's unfair. I think we need to, the developers are coming in, they're planning new areas, they want to expand the city, put it on their back. They need to set that aside, and I think we need to encourage them as much as possible.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, if I might just respond to that just for a moment. In our conversations with community development and economic development, there certainly is extensive negotiations with developers. What I think that our study might provide them is a more specific framework to say, here are the highest priorities for us for new facilities. Here is absolutely what we would like to see developers agreeing to. Not necessarily just a fire station or a police substation, but we would like to see a multi-generational center being constructed on those parks. So I think that what we want to do is provide them very specific goals to negotiate with the developers also.
Great, that's good. Thank you very much. That's what I wanted to hear.
Any further discussion, questions? Great. Okay, seeing none, I think people are asking you, though, from this podium, the dais, that we want to take advantage of leveraging the land we do own. Okay, we own a lot of land, and so that needs to be considered. And the use, there is a use for the property in the noise contour zones. So. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And then now we'll move to the master plan for Public Works corporate yard.
Thanks, Mayor Kavanaugh, members of council. I'm here tonight with Arrington Watkins Architects. They've been working on our Public Works Master Plan, which was funded by council in the current CIP. And they're going to discuss the process they used, our findings to date, and generally where we need to go in the future to take care of the public works needs of the citizens. This is David Watkins of Arrington Watkins, and this is Marcelo Reyna, also with Arrington Watkins.
Mayor, council members, thank you. As Don said, we were hired to produce a what we call a facility needs assessment, and basically it's a how much public works facilities do you need over the next 10 years, and doing this right? Okay. The agenda appears very long, but I'll move very quickly through it. We did, to start off, we did a number of projections based on our experience with other similar facilities on how much space we thought we would need. And then we've taken that a couple steps further and done master plan on an existing site and then a hypothetical site, and developed some costing so you can at least have a scenario of money that you can think about. The basis of our projections were, first of all, the published City of Goodyear growth projections. This includes, I want to point out that all of this study included only the current city planning area. We didn't consider any future annexations in our projections. We took into account statements and projections in the Goodyear General Plan. A city employee survey, which we were provided with, that said the number one issue of your employees was working conditions. We did extensive staff interviews. We interviewed all of the staff virtually of the 74 staff members of the Public Works. And then we studied models of other cities, two of which we did, our own firm did, Glendale and a Maricopa County facility, and then we're aware of other facilities that are comparable. We started off by projecting population, and really is fairly easy. Your most recent 10-year annual increase has been 16.3. Most recent 5-year annual increase is 17.5. We used 16% and started with your 35,000 that you currently have, and it ended up with a 150-some thousand over a 10-year period, a five-fold increase. Based on those population projections and staff interviews, and then sanity checks basically against other cities, we projected that there would be public works staff of almost 300 in a 10-year period. That initially, and I'll explain this a little further, was after the staff interviews was considerably higher. We compared that to other cities and brought that back down to what we thought was a reasonable amount for a city your size.
Can you, back up real quick? Sure. Sorry. Why do you separate streets out in 2015?
I'm sorry, I should have explained that, Mayor, council member. The red and the tan represent points in which Parks and Rec and Streets and Transportation would be broken out into their own departments.
So are they considered part of Public Works prior to that?
Our study included them over a 10-year period, but they do become, our understanding is that those points in time, they become their own departments. But our study included them all on one site. This is the current organization of the Public Works, and this is very detailed, and this is what we developed from staff interviews. But suffice to say that at current time there's 74 members, employees in the Public Works Department. In 2010, we'd anticipate that there would be two departments under Public Works. Public Works itself and Parks and Rec would break off. At that point, there are 123 employees in the Public Works and a separate Parks Department of 39. In 2015, the Public Works Department is 135. Excuse me, I went too far. 135. The Parks and Rec Department is anticipated to be 65. These are on-site numbers, meaning you have a lot of employees who would not work on the Public Works site. They work in the parks or wherever. We didn't consider those. And at that point, Streets and Transportation would become its own department, and it would have 99 employees, so almost 300 employees in 10 years. And you can see there again, I was going to point out, you already asked the question of these departments would break out at different points in time. As another measure of parks or Public Works departments not only have to house people, they have to house a lot of equipment. And your fleet, which is currently 320 vehicles, we anticipate would grow to over 1,400 vehicles in 10 years. That has an impact not only on vehicle maintenance, but parking, fueling, truck wash, all sorts of facilities issues. Parks open space, based on the population growth and based on your general plan goals, and based on scheduled projects that we already know about through 2011, we anticipate that open space parks could grow by many-fold in 10 years. And again, that has an impact on equipment. This chart shows three columns. One is the existing space that Public Works currently has. They have roughly 8,400 square feet of building and almost 2 acres of land. There was a study apparently done in 1999 that projected Public Works needs through 2004. We were not involved in that study, but it projected that you would need 36,000 square feet in 2004, of which they said you could build it for $7 million. I'm sure you're very surprised that we're going to tell you that to meet your current needs, you'd need 57,000 square feet and 18 acres and cost $23 million. And I'd like to attempt, even though we weren't involved in that original study, I'd like to attempt to explain what I think the difference is. First of all, there's been a very accelerated growth rate in this city. Probably more than a 1999 study would have projected. You have expressed, and I think Public Works is carrying out a goal to expand the services to your residents. The rate of escalation of construction costs has just been more than one could expect, and costs are escalating still at 10 to 15% per year. I just read a cost report from a company called Ryder, Hunt, Levitt and Bailey. And the last quarter was almost 3% increase. So if you take that times 4 quarters, compounded, it's going fast. And also, our scope of our project that we're detailing includes not only a building, but it includes fueling, storage yards, warehouse, fleet maintenance, shops. It's a very all-inclusive. So we then said, okay, if we need 57,000 square feet today and 18 acres, what will we need in 10 years? And we did that in increments of 5 years and 10 years, and came up with a projection of 170,000 square feet and a little over 40 acres over a 10-year period. Then I think I heard the site come up earlier, but we looked at the possibility of putting this project at the site just north of the wastewater or the water treatment plant and west of Australia Parkway. It's big enough, except that the I-10 reliever corridor takes a big swath out of that, and that becomes problematic in terms of the size if you're going to project over a 10-year period. So Public Works said to us, let's look at a hypothetical site that might include a public partnerships with public safety. And so we took our 10-year projection and we developed a site plan that included not only our facility, but possibly next to a public safety facility. And we included in that planning for common uses of fueling, warehouse, car wash, so that you wouldn't end up duplicating those facilities. So the rest of our hypothetical project included this being next to public safety. And you can see in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, we included an extra citywide warehouse that would include not only public works and public safety, but potentially other city departments. We absolutely knew that both from a standpoint of logistics and finances, you couldn't afford to do this, nor would you want to do this all in one. So we developed a series of 4 phases, and just to give you an idea of how this might happen, the original phase would be an office building that virtually all of current public works could work out of. It would eventually become an administration building, but you could put almost everybody except for vehicle maintenance into that building. Vehicle maintenance would stay where they are, at least for the time being. We anticipate that if we were to build that and get it constructed by the end of 2008, that would be a little over $18 million. It would be 38,000 square feet of space and 11.5 acres. That would not be all the square footage that you would need for current use, and like I said, it would leave vehicle maintenance where it is today. Then we would add on to that as time goes on, and we more or less arbitrarily, well, no, it wasn't arbitrary. We took over a 10-year period and we divided it into 30-month segments. And we said if you did 4 phases, every 30 months, that the second phase would be a public works yard building and a vehicle maintenance building. And that would be, that would be an additional 122,000 square feet and $28 million. The third phase might be the public warehouse and additional fueling and CDL training. That would be an additional 180,000 square feet of building area or $23 million. And then the last phase would be a streets and signal department. The streets and transportation would become a department at some point, and so they would have their own building, and we would enlarge the vehicle maintenance. It becomes a very large number, and we've actually escalated these to the point so that they're escalated to the point at which they would be built. So when you're thinking about this, you wouldn't have to escalate these numbers.
So you tried to predict 2016 numbers?
Yes. What we did is we said, based on our conversation with contractors and cost estimators, that at least the current thinking is that this escalation that we're currently going through isn't going to go on forever, so we backed those off. There's the total site. And I guess I would like to conclude with some observations and some examples. First of all, I want to say to you that your employees, we spend a lot of time with them, and they're very passionate about what they do. It was apparent that they liked working here, and unfortunately, they have some very serious and immediate needs. They're working in inadequate facilities. They're seriously short of space, and of course, growth is only going to amplify that. The difficult thing about public works facilities is you can't just really go out and lease one, nor is it easy to retrofit an existing. So unlike office space, you can't lease a public works facility very easily. And the bottom line is, from an employee standpoint, you're in competition with a lot of other cities around here, and we've seen those and been involved in those, and some of those cities, and I've named a few here, a couple of which we've been involved in, been proactive in building new facilities and attracting and keeping employees. Few examples. This is some photos that we took of Goodyear facilities, admin office and break rooms. Here are, this actually is a Maricopa County facility that we did that's office space and break rooms that they are working out of. Here is what you were using as your large vehicle maintenance and a shop. This is what Glendale has in their vehicle maintenance facility. It's kind of hard to get a picture of this office building from any angle, but that's one of the office buildings at the Public Works and one of the conference rooms in that office building. This is a Maricopa County facility, their office building and conference room. Truck and auto maintenance, a modern truck and auto maintenance facility. Truck wash, warehouse and parts, again, Glendale and Maricopa County. I guess in conclusion, I think that this is a very important project for the city of Goodyear, and I know there's lots of tugs on the tax dollars, but you have some great needs here.
Thank you. Comments over here? Yes, and Councilmember Antoniak.
Did you discuss or did you look at any opportunity to incorporate transit as we grow in terms of going after? We didn't specifically talk about it, but I'm familiar with East Valley and the Mesa facility, and where transit, fire, police, public works, sanitation services all happen in one yard. Have you all looked at that, or is that?
As far as we got, was looking at because we knew public works was in the work. I mean, because we knew public safety was in the works, we considered that, but I don't think we were asked to go beyond that. We did not. No, sir.
I would encourage us to look at the I mean, only from a grant funding standpoint, the transit dollars are often, especially given the urbanized area and the study that we're in, and staff is well aware of with Avondale and how we've been identified as an urbanized area and some of the matching dollars. I don't know all the semantic or all the logistics behind it. But see Don nodding his head yes. I don't need an answer tonight, but I just encourage you to look at that.
Mayor, Councilman, I wanted to address a little bit on the transit. We have provided in streets transportation a wing and an office administration space for transit. At this point, there hasn't been really direction as far as what the ultimate transit is going to be. Light rail has been discussed, airport, maybe partnerships. So we don't have a scope on the ultimate idea of transit, but we have planned for sort of a planning department and office space, and so the transit department can at least have a place to work until it spins out into a future facility. So.
And we just discussed RPTA and becoming a member of RPTA, but this is one of those opportunities as a member of that organization to get out in front of their needs and talk about their needs in conjunction with our needs and see where we can partner. Point of bringing it up.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Presentation. Last item on our agenda is
Nobody's going to ask any questions.
whether we should have a professional services contract now.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Brian Barnes from Public Works. I'm here tonight with our prospective consultant, Jim Harris. to briefly discuss the 100-acre park, which is immediately north of the city center and adjacent to the Desert Edge High School. We want to discuss with council this evening some possible advantage of moving forward with the master planning of this park, along with alternative options that council may prefer to delay master planning until the park has a university partner on board, or until the city center project is further along, or both of those options. The award of this master plan design contract is on your regular agenda next Monday, November 13th, and whether or not we get direction to move forward with that this evening, we will either leave it on the agenda or pull it from the agenda depending upon your direction that we get from you this evening. At this time, I'd like to introduce Brian Qualls and Jim Kaufman from Jim Harris.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello. As we get started here, I just want to tell everyone something that you may already know. This is just a great site. It's a fantastic location. The area, as we all know, is 100 acres, just north of the future city center. We are touching Desert Edge High School, and then a majority of this site is adjacent to existing residential. You can't ask for a better location than this site. I don't know how many cities, even in the West, let alone the state, have an opportunity, as the city does here, to plan something with your future downtown, something that is going to be just enjoyed by everyone. And before we get started, I also want to just take time to say how honored we are to be the team that has been selected to go forward with this site. And speaking on behalf of Jim and my team, we are excited. We want to go. We're ready to work on this project, and we're really ready. So to come back to the presentation here, I had it all planned out when I was going to come tonight and say that really we need to get going because we need to catch up with the city center. City center has already been master planned, but after listening to the other presentations tonight, I can tell you we really need to get ahead of some of these other projects, including the library and also with the facilities master plan. I think we're behind. I think this is an opportunity for us to get caught up. So with that being said, I'd like to invite you to experience the life at City Center Park. And by life, what we mean is there's an opportunity for theater, art, and music life. Just imagine outdoor concerts, jazz festivals, even an art fair.
This could be professionals from the high schools, from the schools. It's just a really opportunity for the whole community to come together at a site like this.
We talk about recreation and relaxation life. There is a need for parks, and with 100 acres, there's so much that you can do for having some passive open space to where there can be an opportunity to play soccer with your kids, or take a book from the library and find a nice tree and read, especially where the weather has been for these past couple of weeks. I still can't believe that we're in November, and just think of having an opportunity to have a place to get away but still be part of a community. Also talk about health and wellness life. This can range anywhere on this site from a walking trail or a jogging trail to a rec center. I heard like a senior center type thing. All these are possibilities at this park, and we really need to start thinking about them and getting them going.
And also to just find out what the community is thinking about this. I mean, I'm stunned by all the balls that are in the air in Goodyear right now, but just listening to all the presentations today, and we're really anxious to hear what the public in Goodyear thinks about this park site and everything that could be and possibly should belong at this location.
The last kind of life experience, or not the last one, one more for this, but community life. Again, if you can just imagine a farmer's market one weekend out here at the city center City Center Park to complement the city center, or having a picnic, or the one thing that we kind of talk about, and I don't know if you've heard the phrase, is problems with a lot of places. There is no there. And I know it's kind of funny to say, but you want to create something for people to go and want to stay, instead of going, getting what you need, and leave. You want to have a community life, so someone can grab a cup of coffee and walk over to the park and enjoy that cup of coffee, or lunch, or you're giving a sense of place. You're giving them a place to go.
I think your city center is part of that there, but I think the fact that this 100 acres is immediately adjacent to that provides a whole nother opportunity of so many different things that can be that can supplement the activity and the kind of life that will happen in the city center too.
And the last life experience is campus and learning life. And this can range from the possible new university that has been discussed, the library, even partnering with the adjacent high school, or even if there's any other types of daycares or anything that can be incorporated into this site.
We're the Maricopa County Library District, as we heard this evening too. So.
We understand that there is a concern, and part of the reason why we're waiting is because the university has not been selected, and we're not sure what that could do to this site. And we completely understand that. Which brings me to my next slide. I have taken the master plan from the Phoenix Biotech Campus Study, the TGen building, which is downtown. So this is a real plan that I cleaned up, or prettied up a little bit. They were confined to 14 acres. I mean, that was just the site that they had. And keeping in mind, if they're doing 4-story buildings, with the bottom 3 on my plan, there are really only 1 story, they're getting approximately 600,000 square feet of building space. If you use a rough number of 200 square foot per student, that gives you a 3,000 student base or student population. That is also including parking for 2,000 cars. One thing that we all have to think about and be real truthful about the whole thing, if and when a university is selected, truth be told, they're going to have enough money, enough planning or whatever to build 1 building. They're not. This represents probably a 15 to 20 year build out. So with 1 building and parking, we could go and within the city center park, almost zone, if you will, an area for the university. But we would go beyond that. We would actually start thinking ahead, and we have the opportunity to either have them incorporated into the city center park, or even, again, zoned. But when it's all said and done, I don't think there would be a division or a line drawn in the sand of that this is park and this is university. Within the 15, 20 years, it will be 1 big site that the entire city can enjoy. Let's see, what was else? I think that's... Do we want to get to the concepts, or okay? What we've done, and Jim's going to talk about these a little bit, is we've taken the opportunity and a little bit design challenge here to come up with a couple of concepts that shows an incorporation of university in with that.
They're ideas. We're just so anxious to get started on this, but we've been talking to staff, and there's 2 concepts that I'm going to show here, and they're just concepts, because we realize anything that's going to happen is going to involve a lot of public involvement, a lot of discussions with you, more involvement with the City Center Technical Advisory Committee, but we just wanted to throw out some ideas to kind of get you to start thinking about the tremendous opportunities at this site. And as Brian said, the downtown Phoenix campus is obviously very urban, and it happens on 14 acres. Well, we kind of took that idea and applied it to this site, and think of a university site as kind of an extension to the north of the city center with a similar kind of density and maybe some kind of an urban character. But it also provides the opportunity to really possibly create the iconic structures for the city of Goodyear that might include, I know there's a lot of discussion about this today at the city center, but might include the new library, might include the performing and arts facility, and the kind of the core of this new portion of the park could also include the main first building for the university. What's kind of key to that too is that there's, and it sounds like this is all part of your vocabulary already anyway, but possibility of joint use for all of these types of facilities, and the opportunity to possibly partner with this university and with the high school and the library district and everything to kind of create, at the city center, to really create this new core that will give a sense of place to this park site. But it is totally and completely connected to the city center for pedestrians and vehicles as appropriate. So, the possibility of a library being the symbol, or a performing arts center becoming the symbol for the city of Goodyear, I think is a really tremendous opportunity. And the potential of putting it in a park site like this might set it apart a little bit than putting it within the city center. That's just an idea.
And in addition to that, with going back to the idea of where the university is going to build one building at a time, instead of having a big 15 acres or even 20 acres, we have the room, to expand beyond 15. That's just the number that we used. Even if we go to 20 or 30 acres, that's still 70 acres of park left to build everything that you need. But in the same token, when you think about that, if we were to just give a university 30 acres and they build one building and they take up, let's say, an acre, what do you do with the other 29? Do we throw rock on it? Do we leave it dirt? With an opportunity like this, if we think about all these things right now, we can make the space that hasn't been used yet just passive open space. And we know that it's used for the university. We don't put anything permanent there. Then as the university grows, it grows into the park. And that way we don't have, we're not spending who knows how much, $200,000 just for dust control for the next 15 years until the university is built.
Yeah, this is another concept where the other one was kind of urban in its character that clustered those facilities. This one might be more of a suburban character. It locates those types of facilities that I was talking about, maybe also a community center, around a perimeter of a potential lake. And just different ideas. I think when I mentioned that you had so many balls in the air right now, I'm thinking that maybe if there were a park master plan that went through a very elaborate or very complete process that identified a future university site, that would be a wonderful marketing tool for the city of Goodyear that says we're serious about a university coming here. We want you integrated into our community. We want you integrated into our city center. We have a specific site for you, and we know how it will work with the rest of the amenities that we think are important for the city of Goodyear, and how we can all work together with that. So, again, I think it's important that that we're serious about a site and make that site really significant for everybody and all the types of uses that would go there.
A picture is 1,000 words. To say to a developer, or to say to a private partnership, to say that, yes, we have 100 acres and we'll be able to use that for whatever you need, that's one thing. But to be able to show a plan and say, not only do we have the space, but we've been thinking about it and we know what we want to do. And again, the key word here is plan. This is something that can always be revised and updated as we go through. But we feel that there's enough information out there that there won't be any revisions or there won't be anything. I can't say ever. Never, never, never. But you have something that you can bring people in. And what this does is it helps create a synergy. It creates a synergy with the city center. It also brings in synergy with the university. You get the kids from the high school engaged. You start drawing the people from the residences in, and people get excited when they start seeing pretty pictures on a plan. So the question becomes, why move ahead? We touched on it a little bit, but really this is more than just an idea. It's just a marketing tool. With one thing is, if I heard talk about bringing in someone private to help develop the city center itself. And if there is a public-private partnership, there could be a possibility, and this is just a scenario that I've seen in the past, is that a developer could come in and say, if you give us X amount of square feet, we can help you build your city hall. We could even gift you the city hall if you give us 600,000 square feet of retail space that we can use at our will as long as we follow the rules of the master plan. Think about this. What happens if you have 500,000 square feet and something needs to give to keep this developer on? If we don't have a plan for that 100,000 square feet, it kind of gets plopped somewhere. And then now 5 years down the road, we're back up here with City Council trying to figure out what we're going to do when we plop this 100,000 square feet here. If we plan for it now, then we're ready for anything that comes at us from the city center standpoint when that comes through. We talked about this as well. If we move ahead now, we start to create that sense of place. We get that there. And it's more than just having the shops. And the city center plan is a fantastic plan, and I'm excited about seeing how that progresses as well. But again, I'm thinking that, my parents live here in Goodyear, of bringing my daughter down to the city center and having some lunch and walking across a bridge into the actual park and throwing a ball or chasing the puppies around or something like that, that I can drive here, spend the entire day, and not have to spend it with my mother the whole time. I can be out there at the park. She's not watching.
She can pull it up on the web.
And the city, from what I hear talking with staff, is there is a definite need for public places for public events. Right now, we're scrambling for even to have jazz in the evenings during the nice time, or having a place for a fireworks show for the 4th of July. There's a definite need to start getting these things going, and we need places for the public events. And again, as we touched on, it provides more flexibility for the city center. So we're not back on our heels when a developer says he needs something that's not outside the realm that could happen, but then you can come right back, and when we're not, waiting for him to say, well, you know what, I'm going somewhere else because we needed an answer right away.
I saw in the facilities master plan presentation, and you all saw that too, all the citizen comments, and the one word I wrote down was speed, like do it now, do it now, do it now. They're all waiting for it right now. So,
and then again, it gives an opportunity to provide some of the recreational facilities that we had heard tonight, as far as a senior center, maybe an aquatic center. Especially, this can help with the library site. We can have one posted, and if I can remember how to go back. Oops. I don't know. I got somebody else's plan there. But on the two concepts, before we even came tonight, like I said, we weren't thinking about the library. We were, but not to this level. But on the two concepts that we came up with, our example concepts, we had spotted a library on there, and that was out without looking at any of the plans. So something like that could be planned for really at this point now. So in closing, I just want to say that we are, if we can't show it, we are excited. We're ready to go. We are happy and want to work on this project.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Holland?
Well, your enthusiasm is contagious, because I think we all feel it, so in case you thought you were hiding it, you aren't. And it makes us enthusiastic about it, too, and I think you're talking to the right folks about planning. I think we all believe in planning, and we all want speed, so, that's not an issue. But I think when I look at the bottom line and I start talking about cost and how do we plan this in projects that we already have put dates on and time and made commitments on, and it starts kind of straining things there. But I'm definitely caught up in your enthusiasm, and I appreciate the presentation.
Councilmember Scott?
Thank you very much. When I saw this on the agenda, I really thought we were putting the cart before the horse. You've got some great ideas. I really like the dual purpose of the park with the university and how you went about showing us your schematics. I think there's a lot of potential there, so I'm interested. Thank you.
I just want to thank you for your. I want to thank you very much for your enthusiasm. That goes with your youth. I envy you, believe me.
Thank you.
But I love your ideas and the potential that you present, and how you plan the various setups for that area of the city, and it is going to impact on the future of this city, and it's important for us to seriously consider what you're proposing. I thank you for your time, and thank you again for your enthusiasm. It wears off.
Councilmember Antonio?
Yeah, I just got a different presentation than what I thought I was going to get when I read this evening's agenda item, and that was the merits of whether or not, don't take this the wrong way, guys. I love your enthusiasm. I love the pictures you've shown, and you're very daring showing pictures this early in the game. because I know my peers get attached to certain items in those pictures, and you can kind of come back up in about 9 months when you're back in front of us. I do too. But, yeah, I read, or delaying action until a consultant is selected to design the city center, or until a private university partner is under contract, or both. So I guess I haven't heard, I read a concern. I heard a sales, again, don't take this the wrong way. You guys are consultants, you're about ready to get awarded a $300,000 contract. I'd be up here selling, just like you were this evening. But to staff, what's the concern? Why are we in front of us? Why is this in front of us this evening? And what are the concerns that you all vetted, obviously, in management meetings that I didn't necessarily hear from Ginger?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, part of staff's concern is that we don't want to get too far ahead of one project or the other, and we're very aware of the timing scenario between several of the projects. As the consultants mentioned, the city center has been essentially master planned. However, we don't have a university on board at this point, and the question became to council to give direction to us. How do you want us to proceed? Do you want this master plan to begin to proceed so that we have something that is, in essence, a sales tool to help bring a university on? Or should we delay this process until we have all of the stakeholders in place, i.e. a university, a developer of the city center, and then proceed with this to try and figure out what elements would go into the city center and what elements would go over into the 100-acre park? And so we're aware of the timing of those different projects, and we don't want to impose this upon council. We're asking for your direction this evening.
So, Mayor, I've got two questions then. In terms of the charge and the scope, are they charged with coming up with, say, 3 different concepts at the end of the day for us to look at and see how those might blend, rather than one fixed concept at the end of the contract?
During a master plan process, yes, it wouldn't be inappropriate for us to come up with 2 or 3 different concepts for you to look at. A large part of the master plan process is to go out and hold public meetings to gather input from all of the stakeholders. In some cases, it's going to be the Aqua Korea High School District, the Desert Edge High School. It's going to be City Council. It's going to be citizens participating in that public process. And then, of course, at some point, we want to, in the city center process, if we go forward before we have a university on board as a stakeholder, we identify areas that we would want to set aside for them. Otherwise, if you tell us, no, let's wait until we bring the university on board, then they would be a stakeholder in that process as well.
I think this week is going to be a large factor in whether or not that occurs, obviously. What flexibility does the contract have then in terms of changing direction midstream? If you end up down this path and we end up throwing a wrench, into the wheel here.
Mayor, Councilmember Antoniak, a wrench in terms of...
Well, if the 2 gentlemen that are enthusiastic about the park planning exercise end up halfway down through their process, and then all of a sudden a university comes along and says, yeah, we do need 30 acres, and rather than a lake, we need a cycle track because Lance is going to come and teach cycle engineering here, and you need to, I don't know. I'm just saying, what flexibility do we have?
Councilmember Antoniak, that's included in their scope. Should a university partner come on board, then they would work with the university to not only allocate their space, but to integrate the university in with the other elements of the park and the city center. Parking-wise, pedestrian-wise, maybe sharing a library, whatever those elements would become. That's all included in the scope.
Okay. Yeah, I think this week will be test as to my comfort of this on Monday night. I think I'm comfortable enough, your flexibility, but I just want to make sure I was clear of the understanding of what the item was. Thanks.
Thank you for asking the question. I had the same thing because I was looking at it differently too. And I appreciate your enthusiasm. And I really, in my heart's of heart, think that we need to be looking at this as a total scope. The park, the university, the city center, and I don't think we should make any steps towards isolating one from the other. I think that you just want to drive into this and we're going to actually have the scope, the entire view of this corner with the park and all the amenities. And I think that
I think we've been aggressive on the universities. I think that would be a fantastic component for that side of the city and our quadrant. And I think that it's enough space to give all the citizens what they want in here. So I'm in favor of doing this, putting this into the city center, our corner, and when we do the planning as total.
Yeah, I agree, and I agree that this is more of a marketing approach to me than a completed staff study. And I think we need a completed staff study, and I think we need to be part of that. The integration, this has to be integrated. We're going to have a stadium a couple 100 yards south of city center. We're going to have a city center. One of the developers has not been that supportive, and now we've got another 100 acres. We talked about library. We talked about all these other facilities, and we need an effective retreat on the 17th and 18th, is what we really need. You need to drive us to make decisions at that time on the total package of facilities in the city of Goodyear. And what we're going to do with the land and that we own. That's the way I see it.
I agree with you. You don't want to make any missteps at this just to get something done.
Let's do it right one time.
Yeah, we all want this to be done, like it done next year, but we need to have the time to do the right planning for it.
If I could respond.
So we need to move on. Okay?
Yeah, okay.
All right, and, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, council members report on current events. I just have one. Susan asked me to tell everybody that would you respond by personal or email about your attendance at the college conference?
I already have.
Okay, she doesn't have it. She doesn't have it.
Just
She has yours?
Yeah.
I spoke to her on Friday. So if everybody, we just need a response about your attendance at the college conference. Are you going to be there for the whole thing or part of it or that sort of thing? Okay? Totally up to you. We certainly encourage maximum participation.
Mr. Mayor, I want to report to the council about your attendance and my attendance at the convenience of a review that was done at the Arizona Motor Sports Park by Supervisor Max Wilson and attended by Fenway Creek residents Sandy Hertz and John Spooler and to listen to the impact of noise coming from street legal vehicles. Some 60 of them participated in the program over the weekend, and that the results of which will be coming probably in a week and a half from the individual who conducted the sound readings. We'll go from there.
What was the general feeling of, did you get any?
Really can't say anything at this present time.
Oh.
We really don't know what the impact is going to be from the actual sound engineer. And it's it's something that you're really going to have to be seriously considered. There are people that don't want this thing, period, and particularly people in Pebble Creek. There's no question about it. So, and we have a concern here because we've got 1,500 homes that are going to go in along Camelback, and these people aren't. The construction is being made right now, and those people are going to be moving into a sound area, and that's our concern.
Well, I think it goes beyond Pebble Creek. There's a lot
Well, no, I'm talking about the city itself, the new subdivisions that are going in there, the Suncor subdivision. So consequently, we do have concerns here.
Vice Mayor, did you have?
I just wanted to report that the Human Alliance Transit Symposium went out very well. It was very well attended, and I brought directories into and I put them in all your mailboxes so you'd have some information from that transit symposium. But it was well attended by a lot of our citizens and concerned citizens about transportation issues, and it was a success. So that's why you received those directories.
Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager, any report?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, a couple of reminders. Next week's meeting is not here. It's going to be at the Hampton Inn for the 13th. Also, the meeting on the 27th will be at the Hampton Inn. In addition, I want to really thank the sanitation staff, Brian, and everybody that was involved in that. Please pass on our congratulations to them. One of the best run exercises. They had over 600 cars in less than 4 hours, the official time. They did take it upon themselves to open up and take some individuals at 6 a.m. in the morning, 2 hours early, in order to accomplish that. They were able to take in over 13 tons of various materials. The actual count is still being worked up, but over 600 cars, over 500 of those came out of the city of Goodyear. So well served in total.
Well, I was one of those, and I thank you, and it was very efficient. I couldn't believe when I came in the driveway and I saw the long line of cars, I was thinking, oh, this is going to take forever, and it was in and out quickly.
In addition, we have the mobile public hearing meeting, planning and zoning. If any of you as council members wish to attend, that's on Thursday, not on Wednesday, but it's on Thursday this coming week. We would be leaving approximately 4 o'clock for the 6 o'clock meeting. We will return about 9:30, 10 o'clock if you're interested. The other thing is that the mayor mentioned the 17th and 18th is the council advance retreat. This evening's session is very much to prime the pump, because much of your discussion is about capital improvement planning. It is very much about setting priorities and giving us the kind of sense and direction where you want to go over the next 5 years. So we have a great opportunity out of this discussion to expand on where we need to be. I want to thank you very much for that and giving staff the opportunity to bring this information forward to you. That is the end of my report.
Okay.